The following podcast is being brought to you by the Defy Life Podcast Network.
Welcome to Aftergate, powered by the Defy Life Network. Aftergate is a podcast series highlighting Colgate alumni of color in their professional endeavors Aftergate. Aftergate is hosted by Alvin Glimpf, aka Al, and Herman Dubois, aka Jerry. We are doing Aftergate because Colgate University has produced innovators who have changed the world every day, yet many alumni of color and the mainstream Colgate community are unaware of the amazing accomplishments of alums of color.
This is Aftergate, and as always, I'm here with my co-host Jerry Dubois. And for those who might be joining us for the first time, Aftergate is a conversation that we are having with Colgate University's alumni of color, really talking about what their experiences was like when they were on campus, but more importantly, highlighting their accomplishments once they left Colgate. And so far, we've had some amazing conversations. Each one of them has been fascinating, and looking forward to this conversation as well. Jerry Dubois, how are you doing today, sir?
What's good, my brother? Happy Saturday. I know that we are, in the fall season and looking at, a lot of transitions from school, returning to school, and getting back to some degree of normalcy, even if it's not what it was, whatever this new normal is. And the NFL season is back, and so interested in seeing what can evolve there. So it's good to be here, and looking forward to our next guest and getting some words of wisdom from the decades prior to our time at Colgate, which is to me is always is a lost tradition. We don't go back to the Sankofa way enough and really go to the source, a resource of some of our subject matter, and always excited when we get a chance to meet somebody who can talk that talk.
And I think the other interesting part of the conversations that we've had so far from the people who preceded us is the common themes, the respect for the different, I guess, experiences as well,
Mm-hmm.
though.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the last thing is we also have recognized how what they did, what they accomplished directly contributed to our own experience when we were on campus. And
Absolutely.
while we might not have understood that then, it's pretty evident as we have some of these conversations. So before we jump into our guests of the day, let's talk about our Colgate question, which is this week, when you think about you as an entrepreneur, is there anything in particular to your Colgate experience that might have contributed to the desire to be an entrepreneur and operate in that way, as well as maybe even some experiences that might have informed some of your skill set now?
Interesting, because I don't think that I fully grasped the idea and the power behind being an entrepreneur until later in my life. As a young person, as early as I can remember, my dad always was directing me to have little jobs in the neighborhood, in the community, to make a couple dollars because there was a need. It wasn't about be entrepreneurial. It was about you need to learn how to, have your own money in your pocket, whether it's because you want to buy a candy bar or you want to buy some sneakers or you want to, it's about earning your keep type of thing. And I, as I'm talking about early young age, like middle school age, he would volunteer my employment availability to anybody and everyone that was in need, whether it meant, yo, go shovel the neighbor's car out, go shovel her driveway out of snow. And it wasn't necessarily for money. It was just because he was like, that's what you do. And then I said, okay, well, I'm going to do it for, the older woman across the street for free, but I'm going to go tap on everybody else's door and try to make a couple dollars
Uh-huh.
to do it, and as I got older and I got into high school, the idea was I wanted my own money. I wanted to have my own moves, whether it was for a date or for myself. And so, it was more the need, the lack of not having, which really prompted me thinking of, well, what could I do to make a couple dollars? And then that just sort of stayed with me throughout my, life. And Colgate in and of itself, again, a situation situation of need, a situation of, even with work study and a job off campus, it was always like, what else could we do to make some extra dollars that wasn't going to make us rich? It would just give us a little extra to do a little extra with. I kind of always understood people saying, I never understood fully when people would say, nothing like being your own boss. And I was like, yeah, of course you can say that when you've got, some kind of family or monetary support that allows you to take a risk. And if you fail at that, your life isn't compromised because there's a safety net of family resources there, which I didn't come from. So to become an entrepreneur, into this idea of having your own business to be fully sustainable, was fearful. What was, you were afraid, you took courage, because failure meant struggle, and but yet now, full circle, as a somebody who's had a few entrepreneurial ventures, there's a certain power, there's a certain confidence, there's a certain conviction that you need to have, that it comes from that experience, that has allowed me to be more entrepreneurial in my adult life. But to your question about what do I want to be doing, that can allow me to be successful both financially and personally and professionally, versus, well, I'll do this because it's going to make me money, but I really want to do this because this is what I enjoy doing. And how do I bring those worlds together is, for me, what I think Colgate opened up my eyes to is, I was never going to do a corporate job because that wasn't my thing. I always wanted to be involved in some community impact kind of way. That was never recognized as a real financial, future, but it was making a difference. And now I look at it as, well, I can do both. I can make a difference, have an impact, and be successful where I can sustain myself. I just wish I had started a couple of decades ago, but maybe that wasn't, it had to start now because I had that experience in order to be able to be the entrepreneur that I am today.
For me, when I look at my entrepreneurial journey, I often talk about our time with Kemetware as the birth of my first business as an entrepreneur. And I think a lot of the lessons that we learned then, I think, really did shape my birth of other projects, because I think we put a lot of effort in. We were definitely strategic in many ways. We were risk takers. We pushed the envelope in terms of our content, as well as even some of the merchandise. I thought was has definitely informed who I was kind of going afterwards. But I think coming in, I think desire-wise, I always had a desire to be an entrepreneur, just because I have family who were entrepreneurs. So I can't necessarily give Colgate credit to the desire part. But enough banter. Let's jump in and introduce our guest for today. So today we are having a conversation with Mr. Clarence Brown, class of 76. And just want to welcome you officially to Aftergate, my brother.
All right, thank you. So happy to be here. I was happy to get the invitation and to see that you brothers were doing this. You're absolutely right. We don't talk enough about the past history of Colgate and what that means for the student going forward. But I'm so happy to be here with you, brothers.
Thank you for joining us. Common thing I do when we have a brother on, a sister on from the past that I have met, always like to give context of some of my memories of you.
Okay.
We sat on a panel together in 2016 is kind of my first memory of you in terms of where do I know this brother from?
Okay.
And it was the Alumni of Color having some programming, and it was
right.
5 or 6 other individuals who were talking about what I guess activism was like when they were on campus. And so it was really cool to be up there, and my home Jerry was up there as well that weekend. So just to hear the different stories and how activism has been a major theme at Colgate is my first and probably only memory of you, besides emails that we've kind of exchanged over the years. So
right. Yeah, that was, and I don't think I had been back to Colgate for maybe I'd only been back once or twice before I was back there in 2016. I didn't even remember it was 2016. So, I graduated in 76. So how many years is that between, you know, now
40.
I kept it, yes, 40. So I kept in touch with, all the folks I went to school with. But in terms of interacting with Colgate directly, being on campus again, I hadn't been back. But because other folks said that we're going to do this panel, you know, it's like, getting together with your family from way back when. You say, okay, we're having a family reunion. We're gonna go back to that place where there was some good, there was some bad, there was some ugly, but we're gonna go back as a group, and we're gonna do what we need to do and talk to the younger students coming up. So that was
There's strength in numbers.
yeah, yes, exactly. That is always the case. You want to be with your tribe. He's like, okay, well, with your boys, we're gonna bust up in this place and we're gonna do it,
Oh, y'all want us to come back? Okay.
Right.
We coming back.
Yeah.
Coming back strong.
Yeah, you got to remember, I'm from the Bronx, and so
Where at? What? Give me a street.
I was on Anderson Avenue up in High Bridge in the Bronx.
Okay.
And literally, there was a few of us that came up there I was with Dear Clinton. So Dear Clinton came up there my year and the year after me. So it was like a little bit of I don't think they were quite ready for that Bronx attitude up on the quad. It was like, what's going on right here? These people ain't really scared of us or backing off or nothing like that. So they was like, okay, this is a different kind of Negro, up in here. So, it was different, and for me, it was a culture shock too, because I'm like, I'm from the Bronx. You run the streets, you get on the number 4, you go to school, you do my high school had more people than Colgate had.
Right. Right.
Okay, so it's like the environment it was a little bit of an environmental culture shock, but we got used to it pretty quickly because it was we had the cultural center there, which was a little when I was there, it had been a maintenance building that they converted, and we had our meals down there. We had, discussions down there, a little library, and played a lot of music and had a lot of parties down there. So,
as a matter of fact, our freshman year of Colgate was the last year of that cultural center.
Okay.
So I had a work study position as a sort of admin person that worked at the cultural center in the maintenance facility that then was, sort of the segue to the new facility that was literally built maybe 20, 30 yards away.
Right. Yeah. Which is a lovely facility.
Awesome.
I love the
Fantastic.
facility.
Right. Exactly. I loved it.
So let me, if you could, you touched on it, but take us back to what time when you going to school, you graduated in 76. So now you're going to Colgate 72, early 70s, right?
Yeah.
Paint a picture of what the world is like back then, like globally in New York City, in your high school, like what even attracted you
in your community, in your family. Yep.
Yeah. I'm old, so I try to remember all that stuff. So, I touched on it. I mean, first thing was they had this thing called Subfrosh Weekend where they brought you up, got to see the campus. You got to meet some of the students that were on campus. And they kind of gave you the lay of the land, and they painted a really pretty picture, because they were trying to recruit more folks up there. I was like, I don't want to say they duped us, but I don't want to say that. But I want to say that they painted a rosier picture than what it was. But that's okay. My whole thing was, I need to get into college. I need an education. All right. So, we get there 72. Where we you get broken up into, pods with people you don't necessarily know. And I think I was in Stillman, and we had four. Yeah, we had four. It was 4 brothers in the room. It was 4 of us together. I don't think we ended with 4 brothers in the room because it was, personal conflicts. Everything happens. People from different parts of the country, especially us Bronx people, we
territory.
We cut from a different cloth.
We cut from a different cloth, right? So, but the atmosphere was new to me, but it was the cultural center was welcoming, so that helped a great deal. I found that through classes and stuff, some of the professors weren't welcoming. But I think my first year, and I came up there, I played football in high school. So I came up there, I was supposed to be on the JV, and I got hurt in practice pretty early, and I had a concussion. And pretty early on, I decided, well, I'm not here to play football. I'm here to get an education. So I was like, yo, I'm gonna do what I got to do. Now, I don't think I did well the first year or so. I was on, there's two dean's lists. There's a good dean's list and the bad dean's list. So I was on the bad dean's list that probably first semester, and then I improved as I went on. But things in general were, I don't think in the beginning at least I didn't get all the conflicts that were about to come about. In terms of, okay, why don't we have this at Colgate? Why don't we have that at Colgate? Why do we have what seemed to be for minorities and women a different standard of what this college experience is going to be like? And maybe that some of that drifted into your grades or whatever, but you didn't necessarily feel, I know on a number of occasions, I just didn't feel like I was wanted there in certain areas of the campus. There's no other way to say it. But again, focus being, okay, I got to get in. I'm only like the second person in my family to go to college. So, responsibility was that you got in, you got to get out. And whatever conflicts or whatever you have going on, you got to just forget about that. And you got to make this thing happen. But we did have to say some things on campus. There were some protests on campus. We were in the quad talking about, we want this, we want that. And there were, I don't even remember all the stuff we were asking for, but it just, at the time, it felt like, this is a imbalance on this campus, and we need to correct that stuff. And the only way we're going to do that is if we speak out and we say some things and we disrupt the quad, particularly. I don't know why we were always doing stuff on the quad, but we're out in front of the church making making rowdy noises. But it just felt like it was stuff that we needed to do and we needed to say to make the place better, not for us, but also for the people coming behind us. Now you've probably heard this, a couple hundred times on these podcasts, that there was just stuff that we had to say, we had to do, and we had to demand happen on campus. So in terms of the world, I don't even, that stuff went, it seemed like now, all these years later, it seemed like that went by so fast. I don't even know what's happening in the world. Back then, so much drama is happening right now. It pushes all that stuff down. I know that when I got out, it was it was hard to find work, even though I had a college degree, but through connections that I had made as when I worked in the summer, I would work at Time Magazine. Believe it or not, my sister had a friend over there and got me a job down in the stock room in the sub basement of the Time Life building. And when I got out, I was able to get back in there and basically start my career in the magazine industry. But that's a little bit of luck and a little bit of who you know.
So let me go back for 1 second. So I think one of the things that is kind of running through my mind, listening to your experience, comparing it to, I say, a Leroy Cody's experience, who graduated in 71. So he actually is there 4 years before you, leaves the year before you get there, right? And part of what he shared was that his class is a class that went from, there were 8 brothers to I think maybe 16 comes in with him. So before he gets there, it's a place of exclusion.
Right.
By the time you get there, they're on a journey to inclusion, because Diane Ciccone starts before you get there as well. So they're letting women in, they're letting more Black folk in, and it's like to hear the different, I guess,
it's next step. It's like the next step on the stairway.
Exactly. And y'all are getting there like, all right, if y'all gonna be inclusive, then be inclusive.
Right. Because I know I've heard Diane tell stories about, hey, there weren't no women's bathrooms.
Correct.
Dude, wait a minute. How could that be?
Jerry talks about sometimes we're flying the plane and building it at the same time.
Yes.
In many ways, it seems like Colgate was doing the same thing when it came to this inclusion thing. Like they're saying they're doing it, but if it wasn't for Black folk people of color, Latinos, Asians, all saying, "Look,
Right,
you're not doing it right here. Why don't you
right,
have this? Why don't we have this?" That's
right.
kind of the
Yeah,
path of it all.
absolutely. Absolutely. It absolutely was was a moving train, and they were working on, and they were trying to get it, and it was an experiment for them.
Uh-huh.
Looking back, it was an experiment. They weren't quite sure what they were doing, but they know they needed to do something. I don't know if it involved money or whatever they get from the state or what have you, that they had to include some folks. But um, it was definitely an experiment. They were like, we're going to try this, but we don't know what we're doing. And it was clear they didn't know what they were doing. So,
Would
but
you say that there were any, instances going on in the political climate, whether nationally or internationally,
Mm.
that stand out in your mind, thinking back to 71, 72? You're coming out the Bronx, going to Colgate, and even though we all got that Kool-Aid,
yeah, yeah.
presentation, that at some point, you get there, you realize the reality of what life is there, the culture shock and all. But
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
do you connect that to a larger movement that's going on, that then you start, sort of aligning the movement nationally, internationally with what's happening up in Hamilton, New York?
I guess I can say that. I'm just trying to, think back and see what was going on. I mean, I was so focused on New York, coming out of New York. And I'm still in New York State, but New York
Hmm.
City and Hamilton, New York is like two,
Hmm.
not even
Hmm.
two sides of the same coin.
Alaska and Mexico.
That's right, right. It's like it could be another planet. And I was so focused on what was going on back in New York and what was going on in Hamilton and dealing with. I mean, I dealt with snow before, but that kind,
Nothing like that.
nothing like that. And then they're like, okay, you still got to go to class. I don't care how much snow is outside.
Right.
Um, and I think a friend of mine had a car, but most people didn't have a car. So getting a pizza was a big deal. Going
Hmm.
out, down the road and
Hmm.
getting a pizza and bringing it back. It wasn't for the
Hmm.
hoagie guy or whatever coming around at night. You'd be like,
Mm.
so it's like for me, it was a lot to say. Okay, wow, this is a real different environment, and so the world at large, um, I didn't really didn't. It was like New York.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
didn't really
that
get
was the world.
that was the world to me. It wasn't like
Yeah.
I had, like I've traveled the world now, but it wasn't like that for me then. I was a kid coming out of high school and rough around the edges. I might still be rough around the edges, some people say. But so yeah, I can't say that I was so aware of what was going on in large picture. I just knew that in my space,
Mhm.
the spaces I knew, whether it be New York, the Bronx, or up in
Hmm.
Hamilton, some stuff just wasn't right.
Hmm.
And Bronx people, again, I keep going back to that. We kind of bust up in a place and say, "Look, I ain't taking that."
Right.
It don't work for me. And I might be loud and rowdy, but you're gonna hear me at least.
If I'm gonna be here, I got to make it work for me.
I gotta make it right. I gotta make it work. Exactly, exactly. So I wish I could be more articulate about what was going on in the world
It's
back
all
in the
good. It's
70s.
all good.
Look, I was playing my Earth, Wind and Fire albums, and I was I was
That's
good.
all that mattered. That was
It was,
enough.
I like, I had classes 3 days a week, and I was drinking 3 days a week. So I was
There was
making it work.
that was the beginning of work-life balance before they
That was
coined that
right.
term.
Right there, you
That's
go.
all that was. Those were
That,
the early days of that. But
exactly,
it's
exactly.
interesting. I want to touch on something you said that is come up in many guest interviews, but I don't think we've highlighted it enough and put it in context when you say that coming out of the Bronx, and whether you're coming out of Queens like
Or
Alvin
Brooklyn
was,
or whatever.
or
Yeah, yeah.
Brooklyn, or
Mhm.
but as a 17, 18-year old, your what the ideas are of what your world is very
Mm,
concentrated
right,
around what you're exposed to, right?
right,
And what your
right.
daily movements are like. I went to high school in Harlem but lived in the Bronx, and so
Hmm,
two
hmm.
buses and a train every day, an hour and 20 minutes each way, exposes you to things you ain't used to
Mm.
seeing when
See,
your
right,
world is just the Bronx. So
right,
then,
right.
even though there's parallels, you're still seeing different walks of life. Then you get to
Hmm, hmm.
Colgate, and when the common term that everybody uses is this culture shock. But for folks who haven't gone and lived through that, people don't understand the
Right.
trauma of culture shock. They
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
understand that the
absolutely.
reality of, like, it means something as simple as, I remember one of my sub-frosh weekend on the bus, passing farms and having the realization that there were farms in New York and that there were cows and then there were apple orchards. And I was like, where am I going? Even though I'm still within the state that I've been born and raised in. So the limitations of exposure and the limitations of access to these other lifestyles is part of that shock. And yet, one of the examples I often give is I didn't realize how poor, and when I'm talking to high school kids, I'll say poor, that I was until I got to Colgate, because so many people that were in my everyday existence were living that same life, moving the same way I was moving. It wasn't until I was fully removed from that in a whole nother spectrum where that reality, which led to shock, occurred. And so I think that that's something that when you talk about Colgate wasn't ready for the cat from the Bronx, they still not ready, because we've had discussions about the profile of the student of color and what that's looked like over a 50, 60-year span, and how that impacts Colgate life and student life for students of color and white students. So just wanted to put that as a footnote. We've never really gone there, but
no, I agree with you. I think they started to curate the type of student they wanted to bring to Colgate.
And they didn't want to.
And
still are.
Right, exactly. There's like, well, we can't, there's some element that is too boisterous, loud, rowdy, rebellious, that they don't want at the gate. It's like, we need a student that's like, more, I guess they would call them more level-headed or whatever, but it's, I don't know what they would call them, but they wanted to curate the type of students. That's for sure.
And I'm sure they did, but I think what they learned is that when you come out of some, like, it don't matter if something's not right, it's not right. And they're going to be people from Bronx, they're going to be people from the Queens, they're going to be people from Chicago, there's going to be people from New Orleans. When they get up there and exposed to injustice, something ain't right, you're going to hear about it.
No, injustice, imbalance, inequity, all of that, some of it was real subtle. It's like, okay, how come I don't get invited to that event at such and such professor's house? How come ain't none of us over there? Not that we wanted to go there anyway, but we want to know why we weren't invited.
Right. So when you look back at that time, what do you look as some of your personal accomplishments, things that you are proud of that you accomplished while you was there?
Well, I went there with a certain mindset of what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in science and what have you, and I quickly realized that I was more of a creative person, and that I wanted to do more involved with the arts and with I don't want to say media, but something with the arts. But I still had this in the back of my mind. So I want to do something that's technical, but also creative. But the problem was, you guys got to remember, this is before there was a personal computer.
That's another first.
Before there was a fax machine.
Right.
Which doesn't exist anymore. And I don't even know, I guess there were cell phones, but they were like the size of a brick. I don't even know if there were cell phones. I don't even know if there were cell phones.
And they weren't accessible.
And they weren't accessible to everybody. Right.
Right. Very few people, like doctors and very rich people.
Exactly. So, everything was very manual, very intensive in terms of if, you wanted to communicate or do something on a computer, you were on a kind of teletype looking thing and with mag tape, and it was like, okay, that's kind of rough. So I really gravitated more toward art and English, and I really found myself at the Dana Art Center a lot, and in doing sculpture and different things and studying architecture and stuff like that. And I kind of found out that I like to build stuff and I like to be creative. So I was like an awareness for myself. It wasn't so much of, did I accomplish great things? I mean,
that's an accomplishment.
I got in and I got out, and I got a diploma.
Check the box, done.
Check the box, right? All right. I was on the good dean's list a couple of times. I had, high, grade point average. I was like, okay, I pulled myself up. I worked in the summer in between, going to Colgate, and I was able to go back and work, where I eventually, did the first part of my career at. I think I became a better, bigger person. and started to realize that there's all kinds of people out there. Everybody don't like you, but that's okay.
That's all right.
I
That's
mean,
just
that's
part
all
of the
right.
journey.
That's part of the journey, right? Right.
Anything you miss about those times?
That's a good question. I don't really think there's anything. I mean, if I could talk to my younger self, there's some stuff I would do differently. But if um, if there's something I would change from back then, no.
Uh-huh.
What do I miss? I mean, I lost a lot of friends. I'm older now,
Right.
so I've lost friends and family and all that stuff. So miss folks. But
I think what is often also understated is the idea of the return to Colgate or lack of return to Colgate. And
mhm,
I think a common theme
mhm,
of 99% of the people we've spoke to is
mhm,
that part of what's different about our experience after Gate is
mhm,
that the lack of engagement and sometimes no engagement,
mhm,
and
mhm.
the distance. I mean, 40 years and you were up there twice speaks to
Right.
a lack of engagement with an
Mhm.
institution, and I think that is something that we all experience
Mhm.
when we leave that place.
Right,
To
right.
some, yeah,
Well,
to some,
yeah, the only thing I can say is that, a group of us got together and we spoke to Colgate, and I did have a Colgate reunion in my yard. I got a big backyard. I got an acre. So we did have a
I
bunch
remember
of
being invited to that.
a bunch of black folks from Colgate
Yeah,
in my
yeah, yeah.
backyard, and it was really glorious. And we did take some good photos, and I'll send you guys some of that stuff. But
That'd be
that was
nice.
the first time for a lot of folks,
Uh-huh.
getting together again, and we weren't at Colgate. We're
mm,
down here. I'm in Virginia now. We were, at one of our alumni's house, in the yard, and just,
Mm-hmm.
we made it like how you used to do. You make a party wherever you at.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
We learned that well at
you
Colgate.
learned that well. You make it happen. So
I think
we
that's
made it
part
happen.
of
Right.
that trauma that we've talked about. I
Yeah.
think that's what it's all about is that place itself, the physical campus for
Hmm. Hmm.
many is a memory, a reminder of a traumatic time in their life.
Right. 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 And
we
actually,
might we might
this.
have to coin that post traumatic Colgate disorder and see if we can submit
Some funding.
some kind of clash action suit to like
Right.
eliminate all debt from AOC as a result of services
That's
and trauma
funny.
impact. Yeah, yeah.
That's
You think I'm
funny.
joking?
No,
Let
no,
me get
no.
a paper. Let me get a mental
Write
health
it
person to
down.
write something up as a
Write it down.
clinician and
Right.
come and find one case somewhere in the country where
Right.
some student of color
Right.
caught some kind of
Right.
reparations from the university and is on.
Right. Exactly. 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 You definitely could get that done. we got enough. We got enough smart, intelligent people in our alumni group. We can make that happen.
So Al, just maybe take that pause.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's take a pause, give some
Hmm.
time for our sponsor,
Okay. Good.
and we'll be right back to wrap up this conversation. So this episode is sponsored by Hope Murals. Hope Murals is a nonprofit that provides adolescent youth with an interactive experience of creative expression via an urban arts platform that stimulates both mental and physical development. Please visit their website at www.hopemurals.org to learn more and find ways you can support the work they do. Welcome back. Welcome back. Just want to give some love to our sponsor. Make sure y'all check out Hope Murals because they are doing amazing things with our youth in regards to urban art. So appreciate that. Anyone want to be a sponsor, please check us out at aftergatepodcast@gmail.com. Would love to add you to our sponsor list. Before we dive in, let's make sure we show some love to our network, the Defy Life Network. If you want to hear other podcasts like this, check us out at their podcast hub, www.defylifepods.com, and you will find other amazing content. If you are more into written content, check them out at godefylife.com, and also check out our branded apparel at defylifegear.com. Appreciate all of the love from the network. And remember, if you are not defying life, what is your life about?
Hmm.
Welcome back, my brother. So,
Right.
before we get into who you are, how you got there, would love to get your insight on something that's impacting many of us. As we go around the world, as you drive around the streets, one thing that is apparent is that there are a lot of people hiring, all different parts of the city, all
Right.
different sectors. And so I'm curious to get your insight into that dynamic. Maybe what's our future look like if we don't have a people
Workforce.
who want to work, a workforce? And is it something that we got to adjust from an employee perspective, employer perspective? What's that give and take going to look like? I'm curious to hear what your
Well, yeah,
what's
I've
that
seen
thinking?
that. Yeah, I've seen that too, especially distribution. If you go to the store and they don't have certain products because they don't have enough truck drivers.
Mm,
It's simple, right?
Right.
mm,
There's people giving bonuses if you will become a truck driver. I mean, I think that what the pandemic has highlighted is like, um, what is as a worker, right? What do I really want to do?
Hmm.
If I really hated being a computer jock sitting at a desk all day long, I might want to go grow some wine grapes or something. I think people are really taking a hard look at what do I really want to do and how do I get some joy out of life, because people were scared out of their pants with the pandemic, and they still are, about how much longer am I going to live, and what do I want to do with that time as an employee that brings value to my life, my family, or that just gives me some joy. Because you gotta remember, I've worked from home for quite a long time because I own my own business. But if you're getting up, going to a job you don't like every day, that's a grind, right?
mm-hmm.
You need the money, you need to take care of your family, but it's a grind. And if you can, if um, the pandemic hits and you get this like, okay, what do I do now? I know I need money, but what do I do? And do I want to be a truck driver? Do I want to be a server at a restaurant? Do I want to be an office worker? And I think put on my employer hat now. We got to figure out how to make work um, life balance really work for folks that we need that have real professional skills. But we got to, we can't demand that people come into the office every day.
Mm.
We got to have some flexibility. We're like, I need a job done. I'll give you a laptop. I'll give you an internet connection wherever you are, if that's the type of job it is. Now, if it's a construction job and you got to be there to build a building, I'm not sure how that works. You can't dial that in. You got to get some folks that are really interested in being hands-on and like to work on more physical labor. And that's the other thing that's going on is folks is like, I don't want to cut the grass all day. you know, you got people have to find things they have joy in.
Hmm.
And I think that's how we will help more folks come back to work. But there's some jobs that are just not joyful. Um, but you need a lot of folks, you need a lot of bodies. So I don't really have a solution for that, but I know that the problem is going to continue um, as we go forward until we find a way to make work-life balance really work. Um, maybe it's not a 5-day week. Maybe it's a 3 on, 3 off, 1 float
Right, right,
kind of
right.
work schedule. You know what I'm saying? Maybe everybody's not working on a full-time basis, but you have more part-time workers, and you have double the staff you need because everybody's not working a 5-day week.
I think,
There's got to be some combination that works for both the employer and the
yeah.
employee. Because folks are like, right now, folks are scared. The kids are going to school. If they're below a certain age, they can't get vaccinated. People are frightened.
Mm.
I think that take puts a different light on it. I've heard so often from when I'm in these conversations, people just attributing it to the benefits that they're receiving financial, and that's why people don't want to go to work. And I think people are
Oh,
overlooking
yeah.
what
Hmm.
a lot of people have experienced in terms of one, the trauma of it all,
Right.
like you mentioned, and
Mhm.
then that response to that trauma, which is looking at what they're doing, like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah, if you don't want to do that for the rest of your life. And, and the employers, like, my wife works for a nonprofit, and they decided they weren't going back to the office till next year.
Mm.
I mean, that's like 2 years not in the building that you're paying rent for, right? Everybody's at home, everybody's on a computer, everybody's on Zoom calls all day long. Only once in a while they'll go to their office. And then that's one type of response. And it changes the way you view work. Because
Right.
she was used to going to work every single day, doing that, 8-9 hour thing, plus, the trek back and forth. And at first she was like, I don't like it working at home.
Mhm.
I mean, we got 2 offices in the house, so she's across from me, so she hears my loud, but she's trying to be on a Zoom call, and I'm over here being loud. So, but after a while, she's like, you know what, this is a little more balanced. She's working more hours, believe it or not, but
Yeah.
she don't have to get up, get in the car, go here, go there. She misses people, so there's got to be
Balance,
there's got to be some balance. But yeah, it's we got to rethink, how do we do business? But certain industries, I don't know how I don't know how you tell a construction worker, okay, this road has to be built, this building has to be built, and you have to come in, and maybe it's a new influx of different kinds of people that want to really be outside and work, or be in different environments and work. They don't want to be in an office environment, because a lot of folks are like that. And I ain't mad at them,
Awesome. Thank you for that insight. It'd be interesting I could see, the Office of Career Planning at Colgate hosting that type of dialogue with employers, and with, the idea of what is the new qualifications to be, credentialed to go into this new workforce when
Right.
the whole landscape has changed. So
yes, the whole landscape.
yes, so now, we reiterated what the Colgate experience was like, and what was going on in your world from Bronx to Hamilton. But now walk us through. You get out of Colgate, it's sort of like 76, and walk us through as best you can from 76 now to 21, and give us some of those milestones and highlights. And you come out of Colgate, what's next for you personally, professionally, and just
Okay.
enlighten us.
Enlighten you. Well, so when I came out in 76, the job market was kind of tight. And I was looking around. I went through a few interviews and I did different stuff. And I wound up, I don't know if you remember Newsweek magazine. I wound up at Newsweek in the mailroom. I'm like, I need a job. I'll go to the mailroom. And, they were pretty nice folks over there. But, as in the summer, in between Colgate, I had worked over at Time magazine down in the stockroom. So I was at Newsweek for 1 week. And my boss that was over at Time Inc. in the stockroom said, look, come back over here, work in the stockroom for about 6 months, and get yourself a job upstairs on the magazine, one of the magazines. Remember, you had Time, you had Life, you had Sports Illustrated, you had Fortune, you had Money. All of that was in the same building. He's like, you should be able, you're a smart enough guy, you work with us for a while. So that's what happened. I worked in the stockroom, bringing supplies. I don't know if people know what a stockroom is anymore, but it's like, think of it like Staples, or one of those places that have all the office supplies. But this, literally, they had one in the building. There was so many people working in the building. Remember, this is before computers. Everything is on paper. So you got to really, everything is manual. All right. So I eventually wound up working on Time Magazine US. It was a weekly magazine, doing what they would call ad traffic. Now, back in the day, ad traffic was, say you're going to run a Chevy ad in the magazine. This set of plates would show up. None of this happens anymore. A set of plates, because there was a to get the job, you had to be able to lift 50 pounds, because the ad plates were that heavy. The big plates would come in, check it, make sure it's the right thing, make sure all the paperwork is right. Remember, this is a weekly. There's 52 issues, so this is happening rapid fire. take that, send it off to Chicago, one of the main printing plants, and do it again. So did that for quite a while. Then I was able to get an opportunity to move over to Time International. And on Time International side, dealt with 8 international printing plants around the world. And I was able to start planning the ad side of the magazine, of the international editions. So where do ads go? Where does edit go? Make that determination, work with all the printing plants. And again, this is before computers, so we would have to send our instructions up to a teletype room who would type it in, send it off to the printing plant, whether it be Germany, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Australia, South Africa even. We would send instructions that way. And it wasn't until the IBM PC came out, okay, the IBM PC came out that things started to move a little quicker, because before that, we had to do everything on 13 column pads. I don't know if you guys even know what that is. It's a pad with 13 columns on it. And you would write, okay, I got 4 ads in this country, I got 8 ads in this country, and you would total that all up so you could figure out
It's like
how
a
many
spreadsheet.
It was the manual Excel sheet.
It was a manual Excel spreadsheet, right?
Exactly.
So you had to figure out how many ads went in what places around the world. And so you could tell the printer, okay, print this many pages in this country, print this many pages for this country. And it was all manual. And when the IBM PC came out, we got Lotus. It wasn't Excel yet. Excel didn't exist.
I remember Lotus.
We got Lotus, and we were able to do those, what took us like 2-3 days to figure it out. We were able to do that in like a day. So all of a sudden, it's like things started moving quicker. And then we started transmitting information to the printing plants. Instead of physically putting stuff on a plane, a train, a bus to get it to a printer, we started to use satellite transmissions to be able to transmit instructions and pages up and down to all these locations, not only around international, but all the US plants as well. So I was at Time Magazine for 13 years, between being an ad traffic guy, being a manager for Time International. Got to do some traveling because, sometimes you got to go, you got to meet with the printers and stuff. So I was able to get to, Tokyo, get to Hong Kong, get to Weert in the Netherlands, especially when there are special projects that advertisers required or that we required. So that was my introduction to seeing the world. I mean, started traveling on my own, but this was like traveling for business was different. So I wound up, being at Time Magazine for, that's like 13 years. And a group inside the building we wanted to start this new Black magazine. And it wasn't a Time Inc. project necessarily, but they wanted to start this magazine, and they were looking for people that knew how to do production and manufacturing. So I wound up, talking to his brother, Wilmer Ames, who started it. And we started this magazine called Emerge Magazine.
I remember that magazine.
Right. So we started this publication. And what was interesting was I found out how small a job I had at Time Inc. So when you think about it, like, in a huge organization, a huge group, right? The jobs are broken down so small so they could do it fast, and people become experts in that one little area. Like one person only does insert cards, those little cards that fall out. One person only plans where the ads go. One person plans where the editorial goes. One person transmit. So, all of that is individual jobs broken up. So when you start a publication, and we were starting a Black publication on a low budget, all of a sudden you got to know how to do all those jobs, right? And make sure the product got out and the product looked good. So we wound up starting Emerge Magazine. Oh God, when was that?
Was that early 90s? Mid 90s?
88, yeah, from 1988
Okay.
to 1994. I was like production director. And it was a joint venture between Time, some other investors, Black Entertainment Television. It was a joint, it was a joint venture project. And what eventually happened was BET bought out all the partners, and said, okay, guys, I know y'all are in New York and be doing this magazine, but y'all are all moving to DC. Y'all are moving to Washington. Because we're going to take you and we're going to combine you with some other projects we got in mind. And you're going to run magazines out of the Washington area. So what eventually happened was they brought me down. They started a magazine called Young Sisters and Brothers, which was
YSB.
YSB was a spinoff, and they had television shows for teens and stuff like that. So they wanted that to be complementary to that. We had Emerge magazine, and worked tirelessly on getting those things up and running and out in the marketplace. And eventually BET was building a corporate office. They moved us all into that office because we were spread all over DC at one point. We were in Georgetown, we were in other parts of the city, and brought us all together. And eventually I wound up running, we had Emerge magazine, YSB magazine, we had Heart and Soul magazine, which is one I own now, and we had BET Weekend, which was a newspaper insert. So we wound up with multiple publications going in different directions, talking to the Black audience at different levels, different age ranges. And so I wound up, I was buying paper, I was buying printing, I was getting paper from overseas. I was doing whatever I had to do to make these things work and to manage the staff. I think I had a staff of, at one point, 55, 60 people across the publications. We had our own floor in the building. And, that was, some of the high point of, in terms of working together with Black folks and making sure things happen, putting out quality products. That's, some of the stuff I'm proudest of. And, by now we're doing all this stuff. We got computers, we got PDFs, we got all kind of, we got all kind of good techniques and technology to make stuff happen. And during that same time period, I'm running the magazines. We also, BET saw this thing where the internet became very popular. And we went around and we started, a group of us from BET, we went around and we started talking about how do we build an internet presence for BET. So first we're in DC, AOL was out here in Virginia. So first we went and met with AOL. And we said, okay, we want to, we think we want to do this. We have we didn't call it content then, we just have a lot of information. And we think that would be valuable. And the AOL people was like, yeah, well, we'll kind of meet with you. And then, and then we met with Verizon and they said, yeah, well, and then, Bob Johnson said, look, I'm not messing around with these fools. He called some buddies. He said, I need a meeting with Microsoft. We flew out, met with Microsoft. They said, oh, yes, let's do this. We have all this magazine content. We have all this TV content. So we wound up doing this thing called MSbet, which is now known as BET.com. But it started out as Microsoft BET, and we, utilized the content that we had from the magazines, from the television shows and stuff to create that. And this is all while I'm still doing magazine stuff, day job. But we're also, we're flying out, we're sitting in rooms with nothing but whiteboards and figuring out the structure of what this new platform for BET will be. So I wound up at some point, BET got sold to Viacom. So at that point, Viacom didn't want any magazines. So they wound up selling the magazines to this group called Vanguard Media Group, which is Keith Cleanscales and his guys. And they were in New York. So we wound up shedding some of our publications, shutting down some publications. And I wound up working with them for a while until they went under. And then I wound up, and I should say, always on the side, I had a consulting kind of thing. I was always consulting with people, whether it be the Black nurses, the Black doctors, the dentists. I would, help them with their materials, what have you. Get their event materials together, because again, the leading vehicle was print media, was a leading vehicle, right? So I always had a little side thing, CB and Associates Consulting. I would help with different groups and organizations, and if I could bring them in and promote them through the publications, whatever, I would do that. So after Vanguard Media went under, I just became CB and Associates. So I do my consulting thing, and I don't know how I still have that Yeah, it never goes away. It's always in the
Mm-hmm.
background, right?
Right, right.
It never goes away. So
And sometimes the foreground.
and sometimes the foreground, exactly, right,
Absolutely.
right. So then I got a call from a friend of mine, George Curry, who's
Oh
passed, and
yeah,
he
yeah.
said, you know, I'm over. He was over at by then he's over at the National Newspaper Publishers Association, which is all the black newspapers, like 200 plus newspapers. So I went over there and I acted as the executive director for maybe about a year or so, helping that organization doing the stuff I needed to do. And then I got tapped by another friend called me from the American Psychological Association to help with their publications. So they have big publications now. You know, I'm into the nonprofit world, which I hadn't really been in a nonprofit world, but they had nice publications. Monitor on Psychology is their main publication, and I worked there for about, I want to say, 5 years, selling ads, helping them find printers and get better situated with their publications, working on their website, which is quite large. And now I'm really getting in, you know, there I really get into more and more advertising on websites and how did that work, and being on committees for restructuring websites and stuff, because you got to think I've been doing production and content all this time. We didn't call it content, we just called it production, right? So after a few years of doing that, the and I should say, as a consultant, I would constantly get pulled in. Okay, take a look at these numbers for this publication or that publication, or what's going on, what does it need, you know. And I'd have all these side gigs. And so somebody said to me, um, um, investment professional said, why don't you just go out and buy a publication yourself with some partners? I was like, okay, I guess I could do that. So it just so happens that Heart and Soul was available. I knew the owner, and I had some partners. George was a partner. I had another partner, Patrick Dietrich, who had been a top salesman at not only Time Inc., but at BET.com. And we had another couple other partners. So we made an offer and we bought Heart and Soul magazine about 5 years ago. And so we started running our own publication. I should say, I think I was crazy, but you know, now just imagine, okay, you go from, okay, your job gets even larger, even bigger, because you're handling every aspect of not only a print publication, but now you have a website and the content that goes with that, and social media and all these other stuff that goes on. So we tried to maintain this product, because remember, I had run it before under BET. So now I'm, you know, owner, one of the owners, and it's, you know, it's different being an owner as opposed to being a worker on any kind of thing. So, but because I know the product and I know the product really well, I know what it needs, I know what the history of it is, and I know where it needs to go, because it had been through a few hands. It's a health, fitness, and wellness product, but during the pandemic, I had to expand the content offering, because all of a sudden, you know, my print publication kind of stopped. I'm like, okay, advertisers don't want to advertise. They want to, everybody pulled back, and I got to really push hard on what is this internet offering. So I got to do news, I got to do international, I got to do a lot of personal interviews, a lot of business. So right now, if you went to heartandsoul.com, you'd see all kind of categories, not just health, fitness, and wellness. I still want that as a focus, but you'll see every kind of news that's available. But you still see me helping and promoting a lot of groups and organizations, because that's just part of my DNA. You know, I'm saying we got to lift everybody up. You know, if I need to do something for the Black nurses, a friend of mine, Marcus Johnson, just launched his podcast today. I made sure I put on the website that his podcast was launching today, and that, you know, that kind of stuff is what, you know, is what is my responsibility as a quality source of information. And you know, I have this argument with people all the time about what's a trusted source. You know, we could talk about that for hours, because to me, you know, Facebook, and some of these other entities just ruined what information is, and what correct information is, and what's true. You know, right now, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing my, you know, heartandsoul.com. Now, I also got a piece of Women's Leadership Magazine, that's WLM. I'll send you all these links so you guys
Okay.
have them all.
Mhm.
I think
Also, yeah, I got 5 or 6 things I'm involved in that are all media related. So
thank you for mentioning Curry, because as you was
yes.
talking about Emerge, and I'm
Mhm.
trying to remember at that time I was a subscriber and it was this black man. I'm like, who did I associate
Hey, right.
Emerge with? And I couldn't think of his
Right,
name.
George
And
Curry. Right,
George Curry was his name. I remember him
right.
clearly.
Yeah.
Remember him doing interviews on TV, and I
Oh,
really
he's
feel like,
constantly. He was great. Oh, he's
right.
fantastic. Was a fantastic editor in chief and just a fantastic thought leader. So it was so hard when he passed. But like I said, I'm old. We lost a lot of people.
Oh, it's interesting you talk about your journey in the media world, particularly with print. It lends to the era because you have folks now in media who have never ever experienced print because it's almost in some cases
Mm,
obsolete with so
right.
many other
Right.
platforms.
Mhm.
You know, was there anything at Colgate that besides those summer jobs that you think that was part of the interest or the direction, the projection of you going into that industry, or was it just the fate of those summer jobs and having to make a buck and figure out, well, I'll do this after Colgate just because it's going to give me a job until I figure out what I want to do, and then next thing you know, lo and behold, you created a niche for yourself because you just that dude from the Bronx, from Clinton, who knew how to navigate and
Right.
get something out of something that wasn't necessarily planned from the jump.
Yeah, I would say that what led me was, I was really interested in art and
Mm.
images and imagery and sculpture and stuff. And I'm like, that made me. I took a lot of English classes because I had an art and an English major, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but what really gravitated me toward magazines was, okay, it's not just the text on the page, it's the imagery that creates the total
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
environment of,
Yeah.
okay, tell me how this story works or tell me about this subject matter. You can't just have text, you can't just have
Yeah.
art. You have to have both pieces to make that work. And I try to, I do that to this day. I mean, I'm in Photoshop every day doing something to, I'm
Mm-hmm.
in Adobe InDesign every day. And I'm on WordPress every day doing
Mm-hmm.
something to try to
Mm-hmm.
tell a story. And it all comes back to, okay, how do I creatively say, yeah, here's the text, but here's an image that tells a story. And I think it was more my art classes at Colgate and my art professors that
Mm-hmm.
got me in the mix of how do at first I don't know, how am I using my art background? I wasn't using it at first. I was in the stock room, then I'm trafficking ads, which are creative, very creative. But it wasn't until I got to the point where I'm actually creating magazine pages and creating websites and stuff that I say, oh, I see how all of this fits together now, because I can see magazine pages in my brain.
Mm.
Like, you throw some stuff on the table, here's some pictures, here's some text. I can see how the page is constructed in my head before it ever hits the screen.
Nice.
Right. And that's become from years of doing magazines. Just so.
You talk about your art background. I'm just curious, was that something that was part of you throughout your adolescence and high school? In other words, were you into street arts? There wasn't digital.
No,
There wasn't digital
there
art
wasn't no
then. So
digital.
did
Yeah,
you have a
yeah.
sketch pad that you were working with at home?
No, it's weird. It's like, as a kid, I had blocks, an erector set. I don't even know what erector, people know
Lego.
what the equivalent of Legos. I like to put stuff together. I used to do models, Batman, Superman, I used to, the human brain, I'd have a model I put together, and in my room, I would just take clippings out of magazines and stuff, just paste it on the wall. So I had stuff all over the wall, different stuff. So I guess there was a penchant toward art and toward creativity as a kid. But I never knew it would turn into I'm going to be
Yeah.
running a magazine and creating
Mm-hmm.
pages and stuff like that. You can see all the more publications back there,
Nice.
samples of stuff.
Yeah.
Those are all stuff I helped create. It looks like a mess, but it's it's got some organization to it.
There's order to it.
There's an order to it. I know how to go pick out a sample or something. I mean, even right now, like I got a friend that's starting a restaurant. He said, help me with the brochure, help me with the website. I was like, okay, I know how to make it look professional, clean, and tell the story of what you're going to do with your restaurant. And that all comes from, how do you put it together?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Awesome. So let me ask you, if you had an opportunity to give some words of wisdom to you going into Colgate as well as you leaving Colgate, what
Okay.
would some of that advice be?
Well, okay. So the advice going in would be study hard,
Mm,
study everything, try new things, right?
mm,
Try some subject matter you don't know. I mean, I took biology classes, I took art classes, I took English class, but I was like, open up your mind a little bit because again, I'm coming from, a tight environment, Bronx, New York. And
Hmm.
I know what I know. You know,
mhm.
my parents didn't go to college. I mean, one of my parents didn't graduate high school. So I don't, I know what I know, but I would say open up your mind more, get involved in as many things as you can so that you can have a well-rounded experience, whether people want you to or not.
Mhm.
Bust up in that door and do what you got to do for yourself because it's for you. It's not for anybody else,
Mm, mm, mm.
Okay. So,
Okay, okay,
okay.
okay.
All right. Coming out, I would say I had network, but network more.
Mm,
Whatever it is coming out, you got to network with as many people as possible, talk to as many people as possible because it's not really your resume
mhm.
that's going to get you someplace. It's going to be who do you know? Who do you know to know somebody?
Mm.
And then again, open up to possibilities that you didn't think of. I mean, I had worked. I mean, I wanted to be in art. I wanted to work at
Mm.
a museum or art gallery or whatever. I thought that's where I was going. I never did that.
Never did that.
Hey, I got some
Never.
interview. I got some interviews at some different, facility, museums and
Hmm.
places, but I never did that.
Right, right. Just how
Right.
life works. Just how
That's
life
how it's
works.
how it is.
Yeah.
You got to roll, But I
Take it
like
as
what
it
I'm doing.
comes.
But I like where I've landed. After at 66, I like I like where I am.
Life is good. Life is good. Yes,
You
sir.
know, I mean, but and be flexible. I mean, like literally, I got my CB and Associates. I got magazines. I got websites. And I got an Uber business. When I'm bored, I get in my car and I drive Uber so I could
Say
drive
word.
around.
Get out of town
Say
I'm
word.
not even playing. I get in my car, I drive around.
with a few magazines in the back seat
But
for
oh,
leisure for
you know it.
leisurely reading for
You know
leisurely
it.
reading.
You know
Entertain
it.
yourself.
Pull,
You
pull.
you can you
Oh
can
my
have that you
goodness.
can have that
Have
magazine.
that
Take
one,
that one
right?
with you.
You can take that with you. I literally, I'm like,
I already know.
don't limit yourself to, because some people get stuck in a lane or they're told they need to be in a lane. You don't
Right.
need to be in that lane just because somebody told you.
It's called
Uh,
Swerve.
It's called swerve, right? Right, right.
hey, this has been even better than I can imagine. It's been a fascinating conversation. Give us a sense of some of them lanes. What do you want to promote? Give us some websites. Give us some ways to
Okay.
support you, engage with you for our listeners. What's the
Oh
best?
yeah. Well, my first and foremost is heartandsoul.com. That's my main website. Go there, click on the articles, read. I got good partners that supply me with content. I want information out there for folks that's vetted, that's true, that
Mm,
you can rely on. I want you to go to um, I mean, we got a Heart and Soul Facebook page, but link up with me on
We can
LinkedIn.
follow that too. Absolutely.
Link up with me on LinkedIn. Just go, look at Clarence Brown on LinkedIn. I got, great business people that I follow them, they follow me. We put stuff out. I mean, right now I got a partner. We're going to put some stuff up about money that's available for small businesses. We're going to put it up on all of my platforms and on, like if you got XYZ, if you're in certain industries, there's money. There's a lot of money out there right now. There is a lot
okay.
of money floating around right now for businesses and small businesses, even startups, right? But you got to know who it is and you got to have your paperwork straight. This is what it is. You just got to get out and say, okay, how do I find out what's available for me and not be afraid to jump in because there's a lot of paperwork involved, a lot of detail involved.
Right.
If it was easy, everybody would do it. That's an old saying,
Yep.
right? But if you have to trudge through a little bit of water and fire to get
Correct.
your dream and
Get what you want.
get your business started, go ahead. Like me and my partners to get Heart and Soul, we got an SBA loan.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
We got a loan from the state of Maryland. We got loans from different people, we're like, what we had to do, we put our own money in, but we had to go out and, we had to do it.
You got to have skin in the game, or else you're not fully invested.
Right.
Correct.
Right. And
you got to be willing to lose something to gain.
Believe me. And when you find that out quickly when you have, you start different businesses and you have partners and they all say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. All right. When it comes to the rubber meeting the road, everybody is not an entrepreneur. That is not. They're like, oh, wow. I mean, I don't get a paycheck. I know we got to pay the employees first.
Right.
We got to pay these people first. You're an investor and you also putting some skin and some work in it.
Right.
And we'll reap the benefits at the end. We'll get the big money, but we ain't, you ain't necessarily going to get no big money in the beginning, especially in a small business. That's why I have multiple businesses.
Multiple streams of income.
Because sometimes ain't nothing coming in.
Right.
On business A, B, or C. So you got to do D.
Well, speaking of while E is marinating in the background, I get launched in 2023, right?
Right.
So whether it's CB and Associates or Heart and Soul magazine or Woman Leadership magazine, I'm feeling a need to have one of those entities become a sponsor Aftergate for multiple reasons. One, they're just too complementary. There's a synergy there.
Absolutely.
And one of the ultimate purposes and missions of this platform is to provide an opportunity for not just Colgate, but for us to see what we are doing and how we have more power that we need to leverage to do what we do. We already doing it for the masses. Why aren't we doing it for each other? So
exactly.
we want to have that discussion with you soon.
Yeah, because I even have part of a bride magazine, signaturebride.net. And that's a lovely website. I got a partner doing that. MEA magazine is a one that works with government contractors and small and mid-sized businesses, and we just launching an international edition of that. So I literally I'm all in media. I ain't huge, I ain't the biggest, but I'm all in. And
you don't need to be. You need to be relevant.
Right.
Well, without sounding selfish, both Brother Glenn and I also have ventures going on, some together, some independently, that we will definitely need to be linking with you and getting some consultation and guidance with that. And at the same time, maybe we can partner as well.
Okay, absolutely. I partner with a lot of folks, Congressional Black Caucus. I partner with everybody that makes
just
sense.
to name a few.
I'm a media sponsor, but basically I'm a media sponsor. What happens? I help promote stuff for people, different groups and organizations that are doing stuff in the community.
He about to say he got a hard stop at 11:30 because he about to have coffee with Barack or something. And just
about to hit the tees. Brother. This has been an awesome conversation. Thank you for giving us so much of your time welcome. As well as your perspective. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very my pleasure. I love doing the brain dump because I can't take this with me. I like push it out there for everybody. Anybody that needs advice or whatever, I'm more than happy to talk to them because it's what I'm supposed to do.
And now that y'all call it content, I think we can both agree that there's some content that we can throw your way that might fit into one of your spectrums.
Okay, fantastic. I love it.
Yeah.
So on that note, thank you. This wrapped up another episode of Aftergate, powered by the Defy Life Network. Please make sure you check us out on all of your favorite platforms, from Spreaker to Spotify to Apple Podcasts to iHeart. Aftergate is on all of them. It has been an amazing conversation. Please check out future episodes of amazing conversations as well. So peace, family. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shh. You hear that? Listen closer. That, my friend, is the deafening sound of focus. It drowns out all the useless noise that can clutter the moment. Naysayers don't exist. Haters? Smaters? The peanut gallery? Who's that? When you in your zone, all that noise and all that buzz is just elevator music. So, enjoy your journey, focus on your goal, and bask in the quiet roar that is progress. Because when it's your time to shoot that shot, spit that verse, or close that deal, the only voice that matters is yours. Defy Life.